You guys know here at Crain and Company, we love betting on football. We are the degenerates of the degenerates when it comes to college football and NFL betting, and we've had a ton of success here. Last year, over plus 50 units.
Something like that.
Over 50 units, insane. Just John Dillinger and them showed up and just took the money. But there's always, going into the season, that one team or that one kind of instinctual bet that I love to lean on, right? It was Coastal Carolina a couple of years ago. There's always one every year, and boy, do I got one for you guys this year. And you need to head on over to betonline.ag to do it. You would be crazy, at least early, to not take every under in a Michigan football game. And I'll tell you why. Obviously, they lost a decent amount of explosiveness on offense. They do have a new head coach who happens to be the offensive line coach, right? Coach Moore, who filled in for Jim Harbaugh last year. And they may have the best defense in the country. You know they're going to run the ball and run the ball and run the ball. We don't know who the quarterback's going to be. It may be Orgy. Yeah, you heard that right. It may be Jack Tuttle, who sounds like a made-up fictional baseball player from like an old Matthew Christopher book, right? It could even be the new five-star phenom freshman. But either way, Coach Moore and the coaching staff knows they need to protect the offense by doing what they're best at, running the ball to set up play action, maybe limiting the pass game even more, and relying on that defense to absolutely suffocate people. You can dominate a game and win it 24-3. It can feel like 48-0. And I think that's what Michigan is going to do. Starting with Fresno State week 1. The over-under's 48. Man, I've never smelled more of a 31-7 game in my life. So every week, at least early, you squad ride with me on this one. Take the under in Michigan games. They're going to try that new clock rule where it doesn't stop after a first down unless it's under 2 minutes going into halftime or under 2 minutes at the end of the game is going to be super beneficial. They are not going to take a ton of chances on offense, and they're going to rely on defense and special teams. Plus, if they do let opposing offenses get in the red zone, probably going to hold them to field goals. Just trust me on this one. We won you a ton of money last year. We're going to do it again this year. Take the under in Michigan games. Speaking of Michigan, former Michigan quarterback David Cone, he likes a lot of points, but he likes wins more than my brother, former Western State Colorado wide receiver Blaine Crain. David, what do you think about my taking the under premonition, prediction, projection, prognostication?
It wasn't even a bad move in the Jim Harbaugh era to take the under, the way they were playing defense. And, I mean, you saw it in the second half of the Penn State game last year. Hey, we won't even throw the ball. If we don't need to throw the football, we're not going to throw the football. We're going to run it. We're going to chew clock. Now with the clock rules different in college football too, like that's I love what you're saying there. I'm just so excited to watch Michigan football this year. I feel like the entire program now and the alumni base can just exhale after a national championship. I mean, getting so close time and time again to have a perfect season with all that went on last year. Yes, Coach Harbaugh leaves, but Sharon Moore was the perfect hire for this program. This isn't some sort of affirmative action or DEI sort of hire. Like, Sharon Moore was the right guy for this job. He's the guy who Jim Harbaugh trusted to fill in for him last year. Went 4-0 as the head coach, really 6-0, but 4-0 as the head coach filling in. We know what he wants to do. He wants to continue that identity that Jim Harbaugh set up, which is always a good identity when you're playing a game as physical as football. Tough defense and run the football. So, yes, it's going to be difficult to replicate the sort of success that Jim Harbaugh created there, especially when you not only don't know who's going to be your starting quarterback right now, but you lose the most storied quarterback in program history, the winningest quarterback in college football history in J.J. McCarthy. But like we've talked about, you return the best corner in the country and Will Johnson, the #1 ranked player on the EA Sports game. Mason Graham at defensive tackle, one of the top defensive tackles in the country. Kenneth Grant, who's running down
that thing from Pacific Rim.
Top tight end, Colston Loveland, the guy who's on the cover of the game at running back, and Donovan Edwards. So you have all the pieces. If they go 10-2, they will make the college football playoff, and Sharon Moore will be up for Coach of the Year. 9-3, I think, would be a heck of a year.
I agree with that.
The question then becomes, okay, who are the 3 losses? Is it Buckeyes, Oregon, and Texas? And this is why Texas being scheduled is so important this year, and I love to see it. Yes, we could have a non-conference schedule like Michigan has had the past couple years. More guaranteed sort of wins with Group of 5 competition or something like that, and then we'd be looking at this saying, oh, well, yeah, Michigan is a favorite to make the college football playoff. No, I love it. Bring Texas to town. Let's play a non-conference game of that sort of importance because I don't think the loser of that game is going to make the college football playoff.
Yeah, and we actually have Michigan's schedule. I want to get that in a second, but Blaine, when I'm looking at this, I feel like Michigan has an identity. We know who they are. They want to line up, run the ball, play action, stop the run, get you in third and long, and get after the quarterback's ass. They're going to try and replicate that. They want to smush you. That's what they want to do. They want to slowly smush you into the locker and then at the end just shut it. I don't think they're going to be as explosive on offense, which isn't a hot take, whatever they want to call it. Everybody knows that. But I think the methodology and the formula that Michigan is going to use is going to be similar, even more conservative, even more run-based, because you can rely on that defense. That's why any points or over-under that has a 4 and then probably a 4 or above next to it, I've got to take the under on that.
No, I agree. I think Michigan's going to be, for one, going to be a hard team to blow out. And two, I mean, if anything, they're going to lean into that identity even more this year. Michigan's going to be Iowa but successful, right? They can do that. And how they did it last year to a certain extent is one of the least penalized teams in college football. Turnover ratio, I think it was plus 19. If you're going to be a team like this, which is run the ball and stop the run on defense, you can't be penalized. You can't turn the ball over because these teams aren't built to what? To come back and beat teams, right? So you have to stay on schedule. You have to stay on time. And that's when it comes to the question of how much are they going to ask out of Alex Orji if he is the starter? How much, game one, how much reins is he going to have for this team? I don't know. We don't know. The only guy who knows that is Sharon Moore. But I wouldn't be surprised if they throw it maybe 10 times a game.
I think 10 to 15 is probably going to be.
You think it'll be that few?
I think it'll be that few, especially early as they try and figure out. Because, again, we've seen them have a quarterback competition that goes into the year. You know, you feel like outside of last year, that's what they were doing. I mean, they were basically having tryouts during the non-conference, David. Let's go ahead and pull Michigan's schedule up. But right now, from who you're talking to, David, obviously you have connections inside that building, inside that facility. Who do you think is going to be the starting quarterback at Michigan and why?
I thought that it was going to be Alex Orji, but then this is what Kirk Campbell, the offensive coordinator and quarterback coach, just said. And this is from the Wolverine.com, our friends over at On3. He said about Alex Orji, Alex is one of the best 11 players on offense. He's going to have to touch the football. We will have a plan for him to touch the football. That sort of statement, you guys coach, you tell me, that sort of statement doesn't indicate that he's going to be the starting quarterback. It means he's going to have a package for him the way we've seen Alex Orji come into games in the past. When I was in Ann Arbor last month, I did get to meet Jack Tuttle. Jack Tuttle is almost our age. You know, I mean, he was going back at Indiana when Kalen DeBoer was there. Obviously, he's very capable. I thought Davis Warren played really well in the spring game. So, look, it's going to be an open competition throughout camp. They have guys who can do a lot of things. I mean, we talk about Alex Orji, 6'3", 235, something like that. Clearly, he can run. I'd be running Q power as much as possible, but we'll see.
So this is the only joke I'm going to make. So if he's kind of a wildcat guy, if he's in there, is it technically the Wild Orgy?
I guess you could say that. Robert Griffin III would say that.
Actually would. So I take that back.
If you just have a wildcat quarterback for the entire season who struggles to throw the football, I don't care how good your defense is in this day and age in college football, like, you're going to struggle.
It's going to be tough.
I don't know if they're going to win 9 or 10 games if Alex Orji really struggles to throw the football.
Well, we want to know what you think. The phone lines are going to open up at 2:45. We're going to talk with David Pollack. Going to get to the chat here in 1 second, but I do want to go through this schedule. So we've got, hit that like, hit that subscribe as well if you're watching on YouTube or wherever you're listening. Make sure you keep sharing the show. We really appreciate it. We got a bunch of big news that's going to break about what we're doing this fall and where we're going. But first, August 31st, Fresno State at home. Good opener. Should be a lot better than them up front. Like I said, the over-under is 48. I'm going to smash that under. I've never felt better about it. And then Texas, David. And the reason I like this isn't just because, y'all are finally playing somebody in the non-conference that you feel like is a good team, but I think it's going to give us a barometer on how good Michigan is early with all that they've replaced. Right? Are they going to stick with that identity, which we know that they are? How open are they going to be from a passing standpoint? Because as good as that Michigan defense is, Texas should, and with Sarkisian's ability to dial it up, Texas should be able to press them a little bit and maybe force the action on Michigan's offensive side. But at worst, we will find out how good Michigan is early, or they will find out, hey, what we need to work on, what we need to adjust as we get into Big Ten play. Because then you've got Arkansas State at home, USC at home, and Minnesota at home. So your first 5 games are at home, right? That's where Auburn and Michigan are similar. Decent chance you can be 5-0. Even if you go 4-1, that's not bad under that stretch. Then to Washington. which we're going to talk about Washington. It's their day at Big Ten Media Day. At Illinois, you get Michigan State at home, or at least as David calls them, the green ones. We'll see with Jonathan Smith there. You get Oregon at home, at Indiana, Northwestern at home, and at Ohio State. Dave, when I look at this schedule, I see 1, I see 2, and I see 3. I see 9-3 with this schedule.
Okay. And the 3 losses are Buckeyes, Oregon, and Texas?
I would say Buckeyes, Oregon, and Texas, but what's crazy is the one I feel that the least good about is Texas beating you guys. Because, again, I worry about Quinn Ewers' health. That's my thing. I know everybody worries about every quarterback's health, but I feel like, y'all may be a little bit of kryptonite to what Texas wants to do, the way y'all hold the ball and hold the ball and hold the ball and run it. I think 9-3 maybe, is it the floor, or is 8-4 the floor to you?
Depending on what type of quarterback play you get, I mean,
let's just say good. Let's
to be honest with you, I would, even at the games at Ohio State, out of those 3 teams, I'd probably think Ohio State would be the best if you're Michigan, because Texas, I mean, you're week 2, so the thoughts of Quinn not being there are injured.
I'm talking about getting hurt during the game is what I'm saying.
That'd be tough. If that happens, and I don't know. Well, Will Howard right now, we don't know, and you said it multiple times, as good of a roster that is at Ohio State. Michigan's defense is good enough if Will Howard is not playing well to go up there and compete, but to go against Dylan Gabriel experience, then you go against Quinn Ewers experience. I know you have Will at corner, but there are new DBs walking onto that field. In Texas, that receiver room is one of the best in the nation. Offensive line room, one of the best in the nation. So the weak link and the most important link to me is quarterback, and that would be Ohio State.
So if you have those 3 losses there, do you guys see them losing to anyone, any surprise losses, who they're better than? I
look at the road. I just don't see, at Illinois, I feel like y'all will still be able to push them around, even though it's a Bielema coach team. I mean, you get Minnesota at home. At Washington with Will Rogers, we're going to break them down. There's so many questions about their offensive line, even though they did get one big-time transfer in there. I don't trust their ability to move the ball against you guys consistently, and I think you can line up and run the ball right down.
Can I ask you this? Are you worried at all with the offense that we're thinking Michigan is going to put on the field with this running the ball and stopping the run, that they're not going to be able to blow out a lot of teams? So most of these will be games. Minnesota at home. I mean, at Illinois, what do they want to do? They want to run the ball and eat the clock. So if you're Michigan, if you get a lot of turnovers, yeah, but there will be close to 1 to 2 possession games.
I'm not too worried about that. Even last year when Michigan was blowing out a lot of other teams, they played Maryland close, right? I mean, even in my tenure in the Big Ten, it was known, hey, if you go on the road and beat Illinois by 1 point, take that win and get on the bus.
And y'all are going to have the 10th pick at quarterback this year.
Well, I also think with Michigan's defense and the way they're built and what they want to do on offense, a 10-point lead for Michigan feels like a 14 to 17-point lead for other teams. Like, I'm wondering how many teams are going to try and force the action because of the way Michigan is playing. That's a real thing. We talk about, does Texas get up and Michigan have to throw the ball more? Which one of these teams is going to get impatient and try and do something offensively that may be outside themselves that plays exactly into what Michigan wants to do defensively? How many teams are going to get, sped up? That's the thing. It's funny. We see this in basketball all the time. What happens to these teams that, slowly take the ball up the court? Right? They get the rebound. They take their time going down against teams that want to run. Well, they speed them up and they start making mistakes. That's when you see turnovers in college basketball. It's the same thing in college football. That's one of the kind of the hidden factors of playing this style of ball. While it may not be super sexy, you can actually speed other teams up by going really slow. That's a real thing. We saw it a couple times last year.
You usually get that with what? An inexperienced quarterback.
Yeah, so my last question is, okay, if it's 9-3, and again, I think 9-3 would be a heck of a start for Sharon Moore in the post-Jim Harbaugh era and, losing a lot of pieces to the NFL draft. If it's 9-3, how does that get you in the college football playoff?
I don't think it does. I don't think it gets you in because if it's 9-3 the way I think, right? And let's just say, and again, we don't make final predictions till the end of fall camp, but let's say you lose to Texas, let's say you lose to Oregon, and let's say you lose to Ohio State. Well, that's 2 losses in the Big Ten, right? And you would lose the tiebreaker against Oregon and Ohio State. So you would be 9-3, not playing in the Big Ten championship game. And this kind of goes back to what Matt Rule said yesterday that we were talking about a little bit on the show. Well, the Big Ten should get 4 teams in. I don't know if they're going to get 4 in, and that counts, obviously, the automatic qualifier. I think when you look at the 12, and even if we keep Notre Dame out of it, you get the 5 automatic bids from the conference, right? The top 5 conference ranked get in, the top 4 get a bye. So that leaves 7 spots left. let's say the SEC gets 3 in, so that's two past the winner. Let's say the Big Ten gets 3 in, that's 2 past the winner. That's 4 extra teams. That's 9. So we're left with 3, right? Does a 9 in, that would mean the ACC and the Big 12, one of those conferences is going to get 2 in.
Yeah.
You would think. So that leaves 1 spot, really. I don't know. I think that's what's going to be the most fascinating part about this college football season, and why everybody that said, oh, the expanded playoff's going to make the regular season less important, bullshit. It's going to make it more important, especially down the stretch.
You need to beat one of the big dogs, and if you lose to somebody, you need that team who you lost to be doing really well.
Well, it's Texas, isn't it?
Like, so if you beat,
well, let's even say in that scenario that they lose to those 3 teams we talked about. You said the Big Ten will get 3 teams in. I think they will as well. So if you lose to Oregon and you lose to the Buckeyes, you'd have to assume that that's probably going to be the rematch of the Big Ten championship game.
You would think.
Right? Like, I mean, that's a little bit of a dangerous assumption, but if both of those teams are beating Michigan with the schedules we've already broken down, let's just say both those teams play in the Big Ten championship, which means one of them already gets the automatic qualifier, and the second one gets the first at-large for the conference, which means, okay, so Michigan's sitting there at 9-3. Could it get that 3rd spot from the Big Ten? Or Penn State? Does Penn State
Did they go 10-2? That's right? The thing.
And
does Iowa find a way with their schedule?
Right. Does somebody else go 10-2?
That's what would worry me more than the 9-3 number. Because if you have the, let's say Oregon and Ohio State playing the Big Ten championship game, and you have 2 teams that are 9-3 and nobody's 10-2 outside of that, then it's a possibility. Even if you lose to Texas, because that's probably still going to be a pretty good-looking loss at the end of the day compared to the other team. And when I look on the schedule, I don't know if another team is going to go 9-3 that y'all are playing against. I don't see Washington going 9-3, Minnesota, USC, Michigan State, Illinois, Indiana, or Northwestern. I don't see them going 9-3, so it would have to be somebody outside of that. But again, that's what makes this fascinating. We're going to legitimately have a bubble, and it's not just going to be a bubble for the Big Ten. Like that last at-large spot, I mean, that's why we need to make sure, and I know the committee, the eye test needs to be part of it. I truly believe in that, the eye test does. But the way they're going to crunch these numbers like they do in the NCAA tournament, the way we see it, because guys, people complain about 68 teams.
Oh, someone's going to cry.
Getting in the NCAA tournament. So what happens if you've got a 9-3 Michigan, right, with 3 quality losses, and then you've got a 9-3 LSU, or you've got a 9-3 Alabama or something like that. Like that to me is where...
Or an undefeated Florida State.
Or an undefeated Florida State whose quarterback got hurt, which I don't know what the way DJU throws, in my opinion, may not be the worst thing. I'm just kidding. I love me some DJU. But no, we want to know what you guys think. We're going to get to the rest of the teams here in a minute. I mean, there's a lot going on today. We need to get to Oregon as well in the Big Ten. All right, let's get to the chat.
Chat, hit that like, hit that subscribe button. If you donate, it's on topic. It will get read. We're going to start off with Ken. Ken, how you doing, man? Who catches more unders this year, Michigan or Iowa? Remember last year you were hot on a lot of Iowa.
Here's my thing. I think, and listen, I know they have some algorithm or math problem. They got those, like Blaine says, Vegas has those 2 twins with their ponytails tied in the pool underneath the casino telling them what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. It's like Avatar.
Yeah.
I think they're going to build in knowing Iowa, is a true defensive team that has struggled to score, but I think Iowa may be decent on offense. Mm-hmm. I think you look at Michigan, you look at the scores last year, and even though they lost what you lost, you look at Donovan Edwards on front of the game, I think they may jack up the overs and unders a little bit. They may not give them that Iowa downgrade, right? Iowa makes me a little nervy because of a former Michigan quarterback in Cade McNamara that's there. So I'm not saying you'd be crazy to take the Iowa under, not at all, but I feel better. Like that 48 number for Michigan, Fresno State, I would lock that in right now. I think that's going to go down. I think before you're going to look up, it's going to be 46.5, and it may go even lower than that. I just think Iowa, it's so baked in that Vegas knows that. Hey, YouTube, thanks for stopping by. If you think my brother looks like Andrew Schultz, you should definitely subscribe. If you don't, though, make sure you hit that subscribe button.